Welcome to Raw Radio.
And we live. Gary, how are you?
I'm good.
Is your battery charged?
My battery is. I'm plugged into the wall here. My battery will not die.
But to all fairness, the episode with Jim that we recorded, it was longer than normal. So in all fairness, I think it's okay to say that he wasn't prepared for this extensively long episode, but his battery died.
It did. Well, I'll tell you, knowing Jim and how much fun he is, I will continue to give him crap about this for as long as I know him. But prior to his battery dying, I think, he had a lot to say. A great guest. And what do you think your biggest takeaway was from speaking with Jim McGovern?
A lot of passion for sport of martial arts in general, judo particularly, jiu-jitsu in big part of his life. 40 years on the mat, competing, studying, and then coaching. It speaks volumes when you spend that amount of time, that percentage of your life on the mat, really contributing to the community. But what I always say is not always unicorns and rainbows, right?
Wow, you didn't say it during the episode, though.
I didn't. But the hills and valleys, right? A lot of obstacles in life, and some of them are very, very serious. But that's not what struck me the most. What really hit me was the fact that of return, how he approached his return back on the mat, and particularly when he talked about. When we asked them, why did you return after your injuries? And they were not simple injuries. They were very, very serious injuries, close to life-threatening. This was not an easy time of his life. And when we asked, why did you return? His answer was simple. I want to get back to norm. I want to get back to my normal life.
Yeah, and getting back to his normal life is something he's still doing several years later from the injuries. And I think something that we see a lot from people is their determination to reach their goals. His goal was to get back to his normal self, and how they get there. He wrote things down of what he wanted to achieve again. It wasn't, seemingly at first, it wasn't these big lofty goals, right? It was walking right again, talking right again, lifting weights, getting back to his normal, like you said. And it just shows me a level of perseverance that I think a lot of people that we've talked to so far inhabit.
Yeah. And I think that's what really separates, athletes of the higher level, the people who are very successful with whatever they do. It doesn't have to, I'm not only referring to sport or jiu-jitsu or judo, just very driven people. It's not how many obstacles I have in the way, but how do I overcome the obstacles that come my way? Mm-hmm. And there's a very different mentality, right? And you mentioned it just a moment ago, writing down, what can I do right now in this situation? Or what's out of my reach? What I'm not capable of doing. And knowing those two facts, he set goals for himself, right? And one by one, step by step, leaning towards that goal of returning on the mat was a very, very long process, but none of this stopped him from really continue, step by step, very slowly, 1% increments, getting back to where he wanted to be. And that stubborn, quote unquote, stubborn attitude is, I think, what really separates the people who are successful in life and people who just kind of coast through life. And we talked about this several different times. There's nothing wrong with coasting. There's nothing wrong with that. But the success of achieving the goals, the success behind achieving the dreams that you have is going to be very different. The result is going to be very different. we mentioned in one of the other episodes, just too stupid to quit. And there's something behind that, right? I mean, there's
a stubbornness factor, but I think it's also, it's drive, I think is a better word for it than stubborn. And, in Jim's case, it seems like it was it has been, because he's not 100% yet. He's still working at it, but he said something really amazing is that, after he had a series of strokes, he was back on the mat 28 days later, I believe he said.
Mm-hmm.
And how did he get there? Because he was too stupid to quit or too stubborn? No, it's because he wrote down what he needed to do to get back to his normal, and he did it. And that's drive, perseverance. I think more than we talk about changing things into a positive a lot. And I think, rather than giving it a name like stubbornness or too stupid to quit, which kind of maybe has a negative connotation, you have goals and you have perseverance and drive. And that's my biggest takeaway from today's episode.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm a big fan of Simon Sinek. He has some amazing speeches all throughout, his career and motivation as a motivational speaker. And he said something very, very interesting that stuck with me years ago. So he said there's two kinds of people in the world. Ones who see the goal and they will do everything to achieve the goal. And there are those who will see every obstacle on the way to the goal. And unfortunately, those two don't bleed. You have to pick which group you belong to and what's important to you. Mm-hmm. Jim definitely falls into the category of having the goal in sight, setting the goals, setting the milestones all throughout. And I'm sure the return back on the mat within 28 days was not the same as he was prior to his injury. I'm pretty confident that his mobility was not the same. He spoke about extensively. He talked about the obstacle of communication, right? Not ability to speak clearly due to the stroke. All that, I'm sure, had big factors on how he felt immediately during the return process, but none of it stopped him from being back on the mat, doing what he loved, being back to the normal, quote unquote, state with big passion of his life.
Yeah. And, he spoke about an Ironman that, who had a catastrophic injury as well, and decided while he was still in the hospital that he was going to make it back. And he started his journey to get back while he was still in the hospital. And it was, he said that the guy was just crawling across the hospital floor, and then he would crawl back, and he started almost immediately. And it's really unbelievable stories, and that's what I took away from today.
Yeah, I think it more and more I think about this episode and Jim's life, and all these stories. I think it is very easy for us to get sidetracked and hyper focused on changing the world. And what I mean by this, these big dreams of having this huge goals above our heads. I want this huge promotion. I want to have this huge house. I want to master, passing the guard. I want to master De La Riva. I want to get black belt in judo, whatever the case might be. But we often ignore these milestones that will take us to these goals. And these 1% increments is what will make us successful. This is these small changes is what will lead us towards the huge success that is our ultimate goal, right? So maybe just think about it for a second. What will it take to get that promotion? What will it take to get the house that we want? What will it take to achieve that black belt? What will it take to master the system of passing the guard? Whatever the case is, that's our end result. There is probably hundreds, if not thousands, of different things between now and then that we can do to lead us towards that goal.
Yeah. Well, it's always about the journey. And I think if you start skipping steps to get to that end result, you're probably not going to get there. It's just going to start falling apart. You can't cheat your way there. You can't make excuses or anything like that. You've got to follow each and every one of those little, those mini goals, right, to get you to that big one. And Jim did that to get back to his normal.
And then once again, I can't stress enough, write things down. This is mine. Do you make your notes?
I have notes. They're right here. You can see them, sort of. Yeah, but I'm starting to subscribe to that more and more. Doing private lessons here in jiu-jitsu. The one when I write stuff down in that class or in that private, I do better the next week. When I don't write it down, it disappears. And so yeah, I think always putting it on paper is the way to go.
Absolutely. Well, Gary, thanks for hanging out with me. Thanks for making fun of me.
Yeah, no problem. It comes easy.
What a great episode.
I'm glad my battery didn't die, and I'm glad we got to hear about unicorns and rainbows.
Outstanding.
All right, I'll talk to you soon.
Well, let's tune in next one. All right.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Thank you for listening to Raw Radio. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to leave us a review and help us make the show even more amazing. For future episodes, check out our website and follow us on all major podcast platforms. Take care.